She banged on my door so hard the wood almost cracked. "You have 3 hours to vacate this property,"
she yelled, waving a paper like it was the law itself.
I was still in my muddy boots, fresh from feeding the horses, just staring at her. Her name was Linda, but everyone around here called her Karen of the Valley. She was the head of the so-called Mountain View HOA, though my land sat miles outside their boundary. Still there she stood, pearls, clipboard, and that fake smile hiding a storm. "You didn't pay your dues," she snapped. "You're not a member and non-members can't stay here." "Those are the new rules," I laughed under my breath. "Lady, this farm has been in my family since before your HOA even existed." Her eyes narrowed. "Not for long." I glanced past her at the line of SUVs parked along my fence, 3 of them with guys in reflective vests pretending to look official. One of them was already taking photos of my barn. My stomach tightened. "What are they doing?" She smirked. "Inventory. In case you refuse to cooperate." It felt unreal. A woman with a fake badge was trying to evict me from land my grandfather built with his own hands. But I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just wiped my hands on my jeans and said quietly, "You've made a mistake." Her tone turned sharp. "No, you made one when you ignored our notices." I stared at that paper again, bold letters, fake logo, no county stamp. It was all theater. But she didn't know one thing. Something that would flip her little game upside down. My heart slowed. My voice stayed calm. "You might want to call your boss before this goes any further." She tilted her head, smirking. "And why's that?" "Because," I said, stepping closer so she could see the badge tucked under my jacket, "I am the county inspector for this district." Her smile froze. The guys by the fence stopped pretending, and that's when I realized this wasn't just about an HOA notice. It was about something much bigger, and they weren't planning to leave quietly. She gave me 3 hours to leave. I gave her 3 seconds to explain why she was on my land. Her face turned pale, but she tried to hold her ground. "Nice try," she said, voice trembling just a little. "Anyone can flash a badge." "True," I replied, pulling out my phone. "But not everyone's phone connects directly to the sheriff's department." I tapped the screen, put it on speaker, and the familiar voice of Deputy Cole filled the air. "Hey, Hank, you need backup?" Karen's smirk vanished. The men by the fence exchanged glances. One of them subtly slid his phone into his pocket and started walking toward his truck. "Yeah," I said calmly, eyes locked on her. "Got some folks claiming HOA authority outside my jurisdiction. They've trespassed on private land." Cole's tone changed instantly. "Stay where you are. We're on the way." Karen's voice broke. You don't understand. This is an official operation. We've been authorized by the community board." I raised an eyebrow. "Then show me the authorization." She fumbled through her clipboard, flipping through papers that all looked the same, stamped with fake seals, full of legal-sounding nonsense. The kind of stuff that fools people who don't know better. "I'll have you know, Mr. Whatever your name is," she stammered. "I've handled dozens of violations. You can't just ignore HOA law." "HOA law doesn't apply here," I said quietly. "This land's federally protected farmland. You're standing on county soil, not your gated suburb." Her lips parted like she wanted to argue, but the sound of sirens echoing up the mountain cut her off. She froze, eyes darting toward the road. For a second, she whispered something under her breath, something that sounded like, "He wasn't supposed to be here today." That's when I knew it wasn't just her little power trip. She was covering something. Maybe money. Maybe property lines. Maybe something way darker. I leaned forward slightly. "Who told you to do this?" She hesitated, clutching her clipboard tighter. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." "Try me," she swallowed hard. "It's not the HOA, it's the developer. They want this land cleared before Monday." My pulse kicked up. Monday. That was the date my grandfather's old water rights were set to renew. If the land changed hands before then, they could claim the entire valley. And suddenly it all made sense. The fake notices. The sudden visit. The 3-hour deadline. Karen wasn't working alone. She thought she was evicting a farmer. She didn't know she was stepping into a land war she couldn't win. The sirens grew louder, echoing through the valley until 2 county cruisers pulled up the dirt road. Dust swirled around them, mixing with the cold mountain air. Karen's little army scattered like scared chickens except for her. She stood still, clipboard shaking in her hands. Deputy Cole stepped out first, tall and steady, his hand resting casually on his belt. "Afternoon, ma'am," he said, glancing at me. Heard we've got a case of fake authority out here. Karen forced a laugh that didn't sound human. There's been a misunderstanding. We were just conducting a compliance check. Routine stuff. Cole frowned. Routine checks don't come with fake seals and private muscle. You want to explain why your crew was photographing county property? Her lips trembled. We were instructed to document violations for the developer. Which developer? Cole asked. She hesitated. Silver Ridge Construction. Cole's face darkened. He looked at me. That's the company that's been trying to buy up half this mountain. Yeah, I said, eyes narrowing. And they're running out of time. Karen stepped back, realizing she'd said too much. Listen, I was just following orders. They told me the land was unclaimed. I pulled a folded paper from my jacket. My grandfather's deed, sealed and recorded decades ago. You mean this land? She blinked fast, her voice barely a whisper. They said it was fake. Fake? I said softly. You broke into my property, threatened to evict me, and now you're saying you didn't check your facts? Cole took the clipboard from her trembling hands. Ma'am, you understand impersonating county officials is a felony, right? Karen's knees buckled slightly. I didn't know. They gave me the badge, the paperwork, but I wasn't listening anymore. My eyes had drifted to one of the SUVs parked by the fence. Through the tinted window, I caught a glimpse of someone watching us. A man in a dark suit. He wasn't part of her crew. Cole noticed my stare. You know him? No, I said quietly. But he sure knows me. The suited man started the engine, kicked up dust, and drove off fast down the mountain road. Karen's voice cracked. That's him, the one who told me it was legal. Cole looked at me. You want us to chase him? I shook my head slowly. No, let him run. We'll find him soon enough. Because whoever that man was, he wasn't done yet, and neither was I. She thought she could hide behind fake papers, but the real criminal just drove away. The mountain road was silent again after the cruisers left, except for the wind pushing through the trees. Karen sat on the hood of her car, face buried in her hands, while Cole walked the perimeter with his flashlight even though the sun hadn't set yet. Something about the way that black SUV sped off didn't sit right with either of us. You think he'll come back? Cole asked quietly. I nodded. He's not done. That wasn't just intimidation. They're trying to erase boundaries literally. He frowned. You mean land records? Exactly, I said. If they can fake enough HOA documents, scare enough owners into signing membership agreements, they can reclassify sections as development zones. Cole let out a low whistle. That's a hell of a scam. Karen looked up, mascara streaking down her cheeks. I didn't know. They told me it was legal, that the land was neglected. They said if I helped, I'd get a board position once the community expanded. Her voice cracked again. It didn't sound like arrogance anymore, it sounded like regret. You've been used, Karen, I said, not unkindly. And if I'm right, there's more of you out there doing the same thing without realizing who's really pulling the strings. Before she could answer, my phone buzzed. A blocked number. I hesitated, then picked up. A man's voice came through, deep and calm. Mr. Carter, I'd appreciate it if you stopped interfering with our project. My grip tightened on the phone. You mean the land my family owns? He chuckled softly. Not for long. You've got an old deed, but paper fades. Progress doesn't. I'm giving you one last offer. Sign the release tonight and we'll let you walk away peacefully. Cole leaned closer, mouthing, Who is it? I hit speaker. You sound brave for someone hiding behind fake HOAs. The man's tone sharpened. I'm not hiding. I'm adjusting the future. You're standing in the way of something much bigger than you. Then, click. He hung up. Karen's face went white. That was him. That's the same voice who hired me. Cole cursed under his breath. We can trace the call, but it'll take time. I stared out toward the tree line, the last light dipping behind the ridge. We don't need time, I said quietly. We need proof. Karen's eyes darted up. Proof of what? That this isn't about an HOA, I said, turning toward the barn. It's about taking over the whole valley. I grabbed a flashlight and started walking, because deep inside that barn was a piece of history, something my grandfather hid years ago, something that could change everything. They thought they could rewrite my family's history. Too bad I kept the truth buried in my barn. The barn creaked as I pushed open the old wooden doors. The smell of hay, oil, and rain-soaked earth filled the air. Karen hesitated at the entrance, clutching her jacket like the shadows might bite her. Cole followed close behind, hand resting on his holster, eyes scanning every corner. "This place hasn't changed since your granddad's time, huh?" Cole muttered. "Not much," I said, pointing the flashlight toward the far wall. "He used to say, if you ever need to prove what's yours, the land will speak for you." Took me years to understand what he meant. We moved past rusted tools, sacks of feed and an old tractor that hadn't run in decades. Then, behind a stack of wooden crates, I stopped. There it was, a floorboard slightly raised, just enough to catch my eye. I knelt, pried it up carefully, and pulled out a small metal lockbox wrapped in an oil-stained cloth. Karen stepped closer. "What is that?" "My grandfather's insurance policy," I said, brushing off the dust. Inside were 3 things: an original land survey, a signed government permit from the 1940s confirming federal protection status, and most shocking, a reel of film labeled Silver Ridge Acquisition 1981. Cole whistled. "That's the developer's name." "Yeah," I said. "And that's the year they tried this the first time." Karen's voice trembled. "You mean this has happened before?" I nodded slowly. "They tried to buy the mountain, but the county stopped them when my grandfather proved their fraud. I thought it ended there. Guess greed doesn't die easy." Cole pulled out his phone. "We'll need to get that film digitized. If it's what I think it is, we can bury them with their own history." But before we could say another word, headlights flashed through the cracks of the barn wall. Karen gasped. "That's the same SUV. I killed the flashlight." The engine outside cut off. We stood frozen as footsteps crunched on gravel. Then a man's voice echoed through the dark. "You shouldn't have opened that box, Mr. Carter." Cole's hand moved toward his gun. "Who's there?" The voice came closer, steady, calm, the same one from the phone call. "Let's just say I handle problems before they become headlines." I felt Karen trembling beside me. "He's serious," she whispered. I whispered back. "So am I." Because that box wasn't the only thing my grandfather left behind. Under the workbench, wrapped in canvas and grease, was an old rifle, registered, clean and perfectly legal. I didn't reach for it, not yet. But just knowing it was there steadied my breath. The man's shadow fell across the barn door. "You've got something that doesn't belong to you." I stepped forward into the faint light. "No," I said calmly. "Everything in here belongs to me, including the truth." He thought he came for my land, but what he really walked into was my family's secret weapon, proof. The door swung open with a violent crack, the beam of a flashlight slicing through the dust like a blade. The man stepped in, tall, crisp suit, cold eyes. The kind of face you'd see behind a boardroom table, not in a muddy barn. He moved like someone who'd already decided the outcome. Cole raised his badge. "County Sheriff's Department. You're trespassing on private property." The man smiled faintly. "I'm not here to trespass, officer. I'm here to negotiate." I kept my eyes on him. "You already tried that over the phone." He ignored me and looked at Karen. "You were supposed to keep this simple. Deliver the notice, get his signature, and walk away. But you just couldn't follow instructions, could you?" Karen's voice was barely a whisper. "You lied to me. You said this was legal." He sighed, straightening his tie. "Everything's legal if you own enough people to say so." That line hit me like a slap. My grandfather's voice echoed in my head. "Land isn't power. It's the truth underneath it that scares them." Cole took a step closer. "You need to leave now." The man's tone didn't change. "You think that badge makes you powerful, deputy? We already have county officials in our pocket. By tomorrow, this land will be listed under eminent domain. You'll be a trespasser, too." Cole's jaw clenched, but before he could reply, I spoke. "That's a bold claim for someone who's about to be recorded." I pointed to the old tractor in the corner. A faint red light blinked from underneath. The security camera I'd installed months ago after my fences were cut. The man froze. "Everything you just said," I continued, "is already uploading to the county server, including your confession about bribing officials." For the first time, he looked uncertain. "You think this changes anything?" "It changes everything," I said, stepping closer. "Because I'm not just a farmer. I'm also the county compliance auditor, and you just admitted to organized fraud on camera." Karen gasped, covering her mouth. Cole reached for his radio. "Dispatch, I've got a live one here. Possible conspiracy involving Silver Ridge Construction. Send backup now." The man turned toward the door, but I blocked his way. "Leaving already?" His calm cracked. You have no idea who you're fighting. Maybe not, I said quietly. But you just found out whose land you're standing on. Outside, the faint echo of sirens started again. Climbing the mountain road, Karen whispered. What happens now? I looked at the man who was now pacing, his confidence unraveling. Now, I said, we let the law do what it was meant to do. He came to steal my land with lies, so I buried him under the weight of his own words. The sirens grew louder, flashing red and blue through the cracks of the barn walls until the whole place pulsed with light. The man in the suit, Mr. Langford, as we later learned, stood frozen like a deer in headlights. His confidence had melted away, replaced by something uglier. Panic. Cole's backup cars screeched to a halt outside. Officers poured in, weapons low but ready. Langford raised his hands, that slick smile trying to creep back onto his face. Now let's not make this dramatic, he said, his voice wobbling. This can still be resolved quietly. Cole barked, hands where I can see them. You're under arrest for attempted fraud, trespassing, and obstruction of county investigation. Langford tried one last move. You think this will stick? You don't know who funds your department, deputy. I own this county. I stepped forward, holding the open lockbox in one hand and the camera feed in the other. You might own a few pockets, Langford. But you don't own the land, and you sure as hell don't own me. Karen stood behind me, shaking, tears running freely now. He made me forge signatures. I have the emails, she stammered. They threatened to sue me if I didn't do it. Cole nodded to an officer. Get her statement. She's our witness now, Langford sneered. You're making a mistake siding with him. He's just a farmer clinging to dead dirt. I met his eyes. That dead dirt feeds families, holds history, and it's more honest than anything you've ever built. An officer cuffed Langford, reading him his rights as he was led outside. The whole time he kept staring at me, muttering something about the investors and unfinished business. When the doors finally closed behind him, the barn fell silent again. The kind of silence that feels earned. Karen sank onto a hay bale, exhaling shakily. I never thought it would go this far. I looked at her and said softly, people like him count on that. They use good folks who don't ask enough questions. Cole came over, tapping the old deed in my hand. You just did this county a bigger favor than you know. That footage, it'll bring down more than just him. I glanced at the reel still sitting in the lockbox, the one marked Silver Ridge Acquisition, 1981. Something in my gut told me this wasn't over. That tape held the rest of the story. Cole, I said quietly, when we get to town, I want that digitized immediately. He nodded. You got it. But Hank, he paused, you might want to be ready. Guys like Langford don't act alone. I looked out through the open barn doors toward the valley below, lights from construction trailers flickering in the distance. The mountain wasn't quiet anymore, it was waking up. They arrested one man tonight, but I could feel it. The real fight for this land was just beginning. The next morning, the valley felt different. Quiet but not peaceful, like the air was holding its breath. News vans lined the dirt road, their tires caked in mud, reporters whispering into cameras about a shocking land fraud scandal in Pine Ridge County. Cole had already gone back to town with the evidence, and Karen was inside the farmhouse, giving her official statement. I stood by the fence, coffee in hand, watching the mist roll over the hills my grandfather once plowed with his bare hands. For the first time in years, I felt like the land itself was watching back. Calm, steady, proud. The crunch of tires behind me broke the moment. Cole stepped out of his cruiser, papers in hand, his face unreadable. You might want to sit down for this, he said. I didn't. What's wrong? He handed me the report. The reel you found, it's gold. Shows proof of Silver Ridge bribing county surveyors back in '81. Your granddad recorded the whole meeting. I blinked, stunned. He knew this would happen again, Cole nodded. He didn't just save his land. He saved everyone else's too. This tape's gonna open investigations across 3 counties. Before I could reply, Karen stepped out, her voice quiet but steady. There's something else you should see. She held up her phone, a shaky video from last night. Langford in the back of the police car, whispering to someone off camera. Cole frowned. What's he saying? Karen hit play. Langford's voice crackled through the speaker. You think you won, Carter? We already bought the mineral rights. The land's yours, but everything under it is ours. My stomach dropped. The bastards had found a loophole. Cole muttered a curse. They'll try to drain the mountain dry, call it resource management. I stared out at the hills again, at the old creek winding through the pines. My grandfather once told me that creek never ran dry because it came from a protected spring, one he'd registered under a separate deed, sealed in a different name. I smiled faintly. Then they don't own what they think they do. Cole raised an eyebrow. You telling me there's another deed? Not telling, I said. Showing. I walked over to the stone marker by the fence, a spot I'd passed 1,000 times. Scratched into it were faint initials, HC 1942, my grandfather's mark. Beneath it, sealed in concrete, was a metal plate with the spring's registry number, the same one that gave me full water and mineral rights. Karen gasped. So they can't touch it? I nodded. Not a drop, not a stone. Cole grinned. You just closed every door they had left. I looked toward the valley where the sun was breaking through the fog, gold light spilling over the fields. No, I said quietly. I just reminded them this land remembers who it belongs to. Karen wiped her eyes, whispering, Guess you really did own this mountain. I smiled. Always did. As Cole drove off to file the final report, I turned back to the farmhouse, the morning breeze carrying the smell of pine and freedom. The land was safe, for now. But I knew this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every person who'd ever been told they didn't belong on their own soil. Every family bullied by fake power. Every voice that stayed quiet because they thought they couldn't win. I took one last sip of coffee and smiled to myself. Funny thing about freedom, I said softly. You don't buy it, you defend it. They gave me 3 hours to leave, but I gave them a lifetime reminder that real ownership can't be stolen.